Hello and welcome to the Noob Spearo podcast, where we interview experts, authorities and characters on all things spearfishing. Come and join us after the show at noobspearo.com, the online spearfishing community helping you to become a better Spearo. Here are your hosts for the show, Shrek and Turbo.
G'day Noob Spearo community. Today we are chatting to Brisbane local. He's a regular dive buddy of mine and Turbo's. Beau started out about a year ago spearfishing, and while he's been spearing, he's also had a good crack at freediving. And in the last Nationals competition here locally, he posted a 155 dynamic and 116 metre no fins. He's got a ponytail. You know, he says he's all about that bass. Welcome to the show, Beau.
G'day fellas, how are you?
G'day Beau, good mate, good to have you with us.
Wish I could say the same.
Did you like that intro, Beau?
It was nice. I don't know how I'm going to live up to that. I don't know how.
That ponytail's living up to it.
Righto, Beau. Just tell us a bit about yourself, where you're from, and how you got started spearfishing.
Well, got into spearfishing through a friend of mine, and he was on the Gold Coast, so my first foray into spearfishing was on the Gold Coast, on Brisbane base. Been lucky enough to get out on the water with you two likeable lads. I do say that tongue in cheek because
love it.
Yeah, we have had our moments, let's just say that. But no, I do been lucky enough to get out off Moreton Island and go sample the diving out there.
So we've been sport, haven't we, Turbo, like having a bloke. You've got to have that token guy on the boat with a ponytail.
You do, yeah.
And everyone's got to have one.
Absolutely. Not only that, he's got a triathlon wetsuit, which is pretty good.
Just while we're there, we started a ritual with Beau when he started coming out with us, and it's sort of become a tradition on the boat. Beau, can you just tell them about what that ritual is for the new guys that come out with us on the boat, and how much you're looking forward to seeing the next guy? So,
I was a bit afraid that you guys are going to bring this up tonight, but new guy on the boat, let's just say there's a certain stigma about catching or spearing certain species of said fish in the areas that we go. And I think most of the local guys around Brisbane and the Gold Coast area will be pretty familiar with the mowongs and the blue groper. And as part of being the first guy, well, being a new guy to the boat and not really having some of the most successful days out there, I was lucky enough to hold up everyone's bycatch, if you like. Some of the scummiest fish you've ever seen.
Yeah. But that's me and Turbo's bread and butter. When we have a bad day, there's no stigma with what you catch. If you get a feed, it's all good.
Yeah. You say that now, but everyone's seen the photos.
The old surgeon fish, they're always a good fallback fish, aren't they? Yeah. They're stupid. They don't really develop a flight response. So you shoot one, they just like to sort of hang around. You can just work your way through them.
I love it, and we all start there. So when you started, Beau, did you find a mentor or a club? I mean, what did the first time you went spearfishing look like?
Yeah, well, it was a whole new world, to be honest. I think there's so many aspects of spearing that you get in, and a lot of the guys and a lot of the posts that you might see, to be honest, probably have a lot of ego involved. And I was lucky enough to bump into someone that you guys have been in contact as well, Mr. Wayne Judge, who, to be honest, for someone of his caliber, leaves his ego at the door and was happy to entertain my questions that I had when I first got in. So yeah, I was lucky enough to find that mentor in him and ask him all the questions that I didn't know the answers to. So
your first time spearfishing, where did you go?
First time was on the Gold Coast, down off Fingal there, Cook Island.
Okay.
Yeah, so there's a couple of reefs down there.
How deep's the water, and what sort of fish species would you encounter there?
Down there, you're usually 99% of the time you'll be drifting, and you'll come over sections of reef that could be, 3 meters of water. It drops away down to 16, 18 meters of water.
That current through there, it flies through
there. It does. It flies through there. You may be able to anchor up and line fish out there, but you definitely can't do it safely spearing.
Yeah,
you need a boat. You need a boat boy,
yeah,
person, and you need to be drifting. The current really rips through there, but in saying that, you get to cover a decent amount of ground. You're seeing new bits of the reef every time, so it does make it interesting. Unfortunately, there's not so many fish down there anymore.
No, there's a lot of blue groper down there because it's just sort of over the border where they're protected, so you sort of can't touch them, and they're just in plague proportions, aren't they?
Oh, definitely. They're almost like the seeing eye dog. They come up to you and they guide you around the reef, and it makes it very tempting when you're new to the sport, when you just want to pull the trigger. But
So just for our listeners, the blue groper in Queensland's open season, and they're quite a good eating fish, but down in New South Wales they are protected.
And just to protect a little bit of pride, they are a little bit more cagey in the Queensland waters.
Definitely.
Just to iron that
There's
out.
not as many of them either.
and they're a good sort of like, one of the species you sort of start shooting up here to get started.
Oh, good on the table.
Yeah.
There's a few surgeons down there too, isn't there? Like large school of surgeons.
Lots of surgeons.
It's pretty good. Like, it's not, if you get a day out there when there's not too much current, off Tweed's pretty good for a noob, I sort of think.
Definitely, I think if you can, somewhere like the Gold Coast, it's got a lot of reef that's close to the shore. Don't necessarily need to know someone with a boat. You can cover a lot of ground, see a lot of good reef, holding a lot of bait, and on their days hold really good fish.
So that first time out off Fingal, did you shoot any fish?
To be honest, I don't think my first time I did. Second time around, there was some mackerel were definitely floating around, and I was lucky enough to bag. It was only a fairly small mackerel in proportion to where some people are getting them, but I think it went about 8 kilo.
Oh, nice. It's a cracker.
Yeah, so it was great, great on the table again. But
and exciting,
definitely when you're new to the sport.
That was like your second time in, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was second go. So to put a fish like that in the boat, especially with a couple of mates around, always feels really good.
Oh yeah, getting those early wickets when you're a noob's essential too. It really fuels the fire to go spearing and keep that going. That's awesome.
Definitely, and I mean, you don't have to be having a lot of bottom time for that species of fish. You can be hitting those sort of. Well, I did grab that fish in about 3 meters of water.
Yeah. Okay. Wow, that's awesome. Well, I guess this brings us to the next little bit of the show. Share with us a story of your most memorable fish. And I think the story you want to tell is about a mackerel, I believe.
Yeah, it is. Back to the old mackerel. They're a very, the line fishermen say they're a great sporting fish to catch, and as a Spearo they are too.
Oh, yeah.
Just progressed onto a reel gun. So my first trip out with a reel gun out off Moreton Island, we were it was a cracking day actually, really good day, blue water, visibility was great. I think it was probably the water we were in was 17 to 18 meters, and we could see some structure on the bottom. We actually noticed that there were a few sharks hanging around. I had the GoPro on and I was more concentrating on the sharks. We had a bit of burley and I wanted to get a bit of footage because everyone always asks you those questions, but everyone's always interested. The people who don't dive, don't spear, want to know about the sharks. Mm. So I was more interested in getting a bit of footage for them.
Yep.
And watching the burley go down, trying to get the footage of sharks. Next thing I turn around and here's this mackerel, and it was a solid fish. Managed to
So what are we talking? Solid fish.
Go on.
Give us an estimate, mate.
It was 20 plus. It was 20 plus kilos, easy.
Oh, so minus 20%.
Yeah. So
I was thinking
take it
40.
take it out of the water. Take it out of the water dressed. It was easy 20 kilos.
It was a guppy. it was dead set.
That's one advantage of dropping a fish is the fact that you can say whatever weight it is. But no, this was a big fish. That reel gun was a 1300 Rob Allen.
Yeah, that shredded. That flew out, didn't it? Because I was in the boat watching that.
You were in the boat that day, and I quickly took a shot at this thing. I chased it, took a shot, and within 10 seconds, it stripped 50 plus meters of line off my reel.
Yeah, wow.
So it was the most memorable fish, but unfortunately didn't land it, and hopefully it lived to see another day because it still had a lot of pep once it had stripped me.
You were diving with the reel gun, and on the gun you also had a float line, didn't you?
Yeah, see, out off Moreton there, I actually had float line. Always good practice, I believe, for safety, bit of visibility for you. Not so much for other boats if you're out wide, but definitely so the person in the boat, we were drifting that day, can see where you are even when you're not on the surface. So yeah, I had a float line. Drifting with the float line, I was close to it. Actually, coming back to the surface after putting a shot, the float line got caught around my snorkel and myself.
So that's what happened. The tension. So once it stripped the reel, and it went onto the float line. You were playing with the float line. It was around your head, I think. That's what it looked like from the boat. And that pressure was just enough to make the spear pull.
Yeah, I actually got advice from yourself. Play it soft. So, not being the best shot with a mackerel, as you'll know when you hit one. If they're not a good shot, they'll drop every time. It had stripped all my line. The float line, I played that softly through my hands, but as I'd come up through a loop, and it looped around my shoulder and my snorkel. Actually ripped my snorkel out and started to pull tight. I actually was reaching for my knife just in case, because I thought, if this does hold, I could be in a lot of strife here. So it actually was one of my hairiest moments that I've had to date as well, spearing.
So takeaways from that for our audience would be, I guess, like, be careful where your float line is when you do shoot fish. Like, always maintain awareness of it. Yeah, it can happen to anyone. I'm not saying that it couldn't, but it is kind of a mistake. I know I made it with mackerel too, and I got tangled in it, just tangled around my leg and tore off. Now, I've actually had it happen a few times. So, but I know when you're starting out, you're not as aware of your float line as you are when you get a bit more experience, and a lot of the experienced guys do away with float lines completely. However, is that sort of a bit of advice you'd offer to people?
Yeah, look, I think at first I thought to myself, I would have loved to do away with the float line, but I think it just proves one thing with spearing is when you least expect it, there could be the fish of the day, there could be the fish, your PB, there could be, anything can change in an instant, and you've got to be ready for that. So like you said, having that awareness, and as you get a bit more time in the water, you are aware of, okay, before I do drop down for that dive, I might just flick my float line out of the way. I might, check my reel tension, check all those little things.
Yeah.
So would you, if you hadn't had the float line out, would you have landed that fish?
Oh, come on. Of course I would have.
Where was the shot?
Where was the shot? Who knows? I'm saying back top corner.
Back top corner. Is that a technical?
That is definitely a technical term. You probably learned that in your first couple of months of spearing, that one.
Okay, I'm not familiar. We got a bit to learn. Clearly, Turbo.
Yeah, I'm going to just hit the back top corner from now on.
Right, I'm just back top corner, guys. Take that away.
Well,
right, this is the section of the show we call the Veterans Vault. So it's where we ask our guests to take us deep into an area of expertise that they know quite a bit about. And we mentioned earlier in the show introduction that Beau's had quite a substantial sort of grounding in freediving. Now he's done quite a lot of training. He's competed in a national competition, and he's done very well for himself. He took out the honours for Australia on the day. So Beau, what are the applications for our audience from freediving training to spearfishing, and what can people take away from that?
Well, first of all, a bit of veteran vault. Come on, boys. A year. Not even a year deep. But anyway, I'll humour you.
You're a record holder by default, so we'll run with it.
He's in Australia. Yeah, that's it.
I think what I've told the freediving club that I joined, there is sometimes a bit of a distinction between freedivers and Spearos, but at the end of the day, you can't spearfish without freediving.
Yep.
By default, you're freediving every time. You might just have a spear gun in your hand. So the biggest thing I took away from the training, I actually started freediving by doing a course. The course was freediving training for Spearos, and out of that I took a lot of things. Probably the biggest thing is your fitness. I really enjoyed the water. Obviously, one of the aspects got me into it. So swimming, your swimming fitness, but also surface recovery, relaxing in the water, being comfortable in the water. They're probably the biggest thing I could say would be being comfortable in the water, whether it's with your gear, with your headspace, with your equipment, or just with what you're doing. Be comfortable.
So for our audience, say we've got some noobs listening in, if they're going down to the local pool to do a bit of practice, what kind of tips could you recommend to them that they could sort of implement straight away? Just some practical stuff.
Well, probably the biggest thing would be if you are going to do any sort of breath hold activities, you really want to have a mate there with you. As well as that, if you don't have someone with you, is just swim.
Yeah.
Swim. I've used to swim and still swim, and one of the activities that I did was never taught to me was just swim, go for a swim for a K, but don't breathe every stroke. Hold your breath for 3 strokes and just get used to that deep breathing, controlled breathing every time. Doesn't matter if you're moving or if you're stationary.
Yeah. And earlier you mentioned before the show static training, just holding your breath in your lounge room at home. helps with dive fitness when you're out in the water.
Oh, definitely. I mean, one of the biggest things that you're going to do is hold your breath. And the beauty of statics is that you can do that basically anywhere. Obviously, driving's not the best one, but in your lounge room at home while you're watching TV, ad breaks are 3 minutes long on average. Hold your breath in an ad break.
Nice one.
Getting comfortable with that urge to breathe, because at the end of the day, it's just an urge to breathe, and that's what we've got to overcome to have that longer bottom time.
I think that's a good method. I mean, I know I'd last through maybe one ad. I don't know about a whole ad break, but we'll start off with one ad and move to two, I suppose.
Well, that's it, and it's all practice, isn't it?
Yeah. Okay, cool. Well, that sounds like some good practical takeaways from some freediving training. Thanks for that, Beau. If you could go back in time, Beau, and give yourself 5 bits of advice for when you started that you would have loved to have had when you started out, what would they be? We call this the Fast 5 Facts for Noobs.
Oh, I think would be find somewhere, whether it be a forum, whether it be, mates or a shop or something that has the right information for you.
So find a community, essentially.
Find a community, mate. Somewhere where the ego's left out and you just get the answers. Because, I mean, at the end of the day, everyone, when you first start up, you don't want to sound like you don't have any idea, but we're all in that boat. You shouldn't worry about that.
It's a bit daunting at the start, isn't it?
Oh, definitely, mate. I think, you get into it and there's so many new things. There's so many new aspects of this sport.
Number 2, Beau?
Is being comfortable. Whether it's your equipment, as I said, whether it's you being relaxed, just get comfortable. Don't change. Every time you go diving, just try and change one thing. Don't try and change
the whole lot.
Everything all in one go. You just want to concentrate on one thing at a time. I found that, every time I went out, there's enough that changes, whether it be the spot that you dive in, the conditions, all those are variables you can't control. So the ones that you can control,
nice.
Let's just do one thing at a time and concentrate on that. See what works for you.
I think that's a separate one. Just do one thing at a time. Number 4, Beau?
Well, that would be what I just basically touched on then, which I forgot. So you're going to have to edit that part out. But what did you say at the end?
We never edit. It's just one take, buddy.
That way our audience know.
Well, there you go.
Just people.
You've been holding your breath too long. So far we've got find a community or a club, etc. to help you get yourself started. Get comfortable in the water. Yeah, that's a big one for me. Once I got comfortable, concentrate on changing one aspect of your diving at a time. So give us your 4th Fast 5 fact.
I guess 4 could be don't hold your breath too much, because this is what happens. You can't come up with 5 bits of advice.
It's 5 bits of
Number
advice.
5, don't hold your breath if you want to be a Spearo.
Yeah. What about food and drink? Any advice around that, around diving?
Well, if you're someone...
Would you recommend Shrek's KFC dive?
Yeah, look.
Get a bit of grease in your goal.
Right, all right, Beau. Come on, give us a 5th.
I dead set just said it.
What about guns? Any advice about guns?
Look, I think definitely one of my tips would be leave your ego at the door. At the end of the day,
that's awesome.
Yeah, at the end of the day, everyone's starting out. You're not going to be able to do these 25-meter dives with a minute bottom time. That's just unrealistic to think that, because it is so new. But it doesn't mean that you're not going to get there. If you actually forget about your ego and talk to people, and, it might even be someone who can't dive as good as you, but you might pick up something that improves your diving. And to be honest, for me, that was the biggest thing. I just wanted to dive better. It didn't matter what it was I was doing. I just wanted to dive better.
I think you sort of gave us another point there about not pushing yourself too hard. Like, you're not going to make those 25-meter dives. So maybe you sort of touched on their dive within your limits. I think it's pretty important.
Yeah, I watched a video on YouTube the other day. It was like a guide to getting started, and it was a sponsored video. And this guy said, getting started, and then he holds his breath and he does this dive. He goes to 35 meters.
Yeah, I'll do it all day.
And he's down there for 2.5 minutes, and then he naturally just shoots this fish out of just nothing.
Yeah.
And it was like watching Superman go spearfishing. There was no real reality to it. And I think that, those two things both come into play there. Leave your ego at home and just be realistic about where you're at on day one.
Because the reality is, when you get started, I know for me, I was in about 3 meters of water, just stoning flathead and loving it, you know, with a hand spear.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's not to say that you don't want to aspire to do those great dives. And I think as my last tip would be get obsessed. Like, I used to live, breathe, sleep. The only thing I'd ever talked about to my friends was diving. You know, that's what you want to do.
That's awesome, Beau. Get obsessed, and if I can add to that, get obsessed with Noob Spearo. Sign up to our mailing list, you know.
And that's the plug.
We're all about, you know, helping you guys stay obsessed and get the right information. So, look, Beau, thanks for coming on the show. Really appreciate it. You've offered us some great tips there, and I like the freediving applications. We're going to have you again at some stage.
Yeah. We're going to have to get you back for a more technical look at freedive training, I think. That's what I'd like to do.
Well, we know that interview won't go for too long, so that'll be fine anytime.
And hopefully by that stage you take yourself a bit more seriously, get rid of the ponytail, and, you know, we'll all have a good show.
Just remember, everyone, you know, you want to be safe, sustainable, and selective when you go spearing, all right?
Yeah, okay, thanks, Beau.
Thanks, Beau. That's
so enough. If people want to if people want to connect with you, Beau, where can they find you? You on Facebook?
No.
Beau Armstrong on Facebook. He loves Facebook. He's a social media.
You're not much of it, social. You haven't really caught up to this century, have you?
No, not quite.
Neither's that ponytail. you look like
just a bit yesteryear.
Yeah, it's you look like an 80s henchman from like a Jackie Chan film.
Just a cook.
Like Steven Segal, but sort of like pasty Steven Segal with no martial arts skill. Right, so thanks, Turbo. Great interview. We've smoked Beau. It's time to go. Thanks, Noob Spearo. So just to recap, Noob Spearo community, Beau's Fast 5 facts were, take it away, Turbo.
Okay, so Beau gave us, he actually gave us 7 facts there tonight because
he can't count. He's all that breath hold.
Okay, so number 1, find a community, find a club, find somebody to help you out to get you started. That's the first thing. Number 2, get comfortable in the water. So that's going to mean more time in the water, guys. Number 3, concentrate on changing one aspect of your diving at a time.
And Beau emphasised there, like, there's a lot of things out spearfishing that you can't control, such as current and temperature and visibility. So just focus on changing one thing that you can control, like maybe a new mask, and then next time a new spear gun. But don't try and change it all at once all the time.
Absolutely. Leave your ego at the door.
I already leave my ego at the door along with my KFC box, apparently.
No, I think what Beau was trying to stress there is, guys, you're not going to dive to 25, 30 metres when you get started. You're not going to pull up massive mackerel. You're not going to get dogtooth tuna. So just go for it. Shoot whatever comes your way, I think.
And enjoy it, and eat what you take home and just love it.
Absolutely. Everyone else is going to be impressed with what you bring home. They're not going to know the difference. Number 6, dive within your limits. Now that's pretty straightforward, guys. Just be safe. You know, if you're only a 5 metre diver, just plug away at it and dive within your limits. And
experienced guys, when they've been going a couple of years and they are pushing their limits a little bit more, they have established buddy protocols, and it's not as easy as it looks when you just watch a video on YouTube. Just ignore the heroics and dive with where you're comfortable on the day.
Absolutely. And the final one from Beau was get obsessed.
Get obsessed. Get into it. It's a great sport.
Yeah, I love it. All right, guys. Thanks for listening and downloading the podcast. Remember to visit us over at noobspearo.com. Check out what we're doing over there. We're all about helping out the noob and helping you out. If you've got any questions, shoot us an email at noobspearo.
Turbo at noobspearo.com or Shrek at noobspearo.com. And we love 5-star reviews on iTunes just quietly.
So if you got a question, we'll fire that question off to our next guest and try to get it answered by an expert.
Yeah.
Thanks for tuning in, guys.
Yeah, looking forward to talking to you next time. Bye, guys.
Thanks for listening today, Noob Spearo. If you'd like to find out any more information from today's guest, then head over to noobspearo.com.
We really appreciate you guys as listeners. Without you, we couldn't do the show. So if you want to help us out, leave us a review on iTunes or head on over to noobspearo.com and sign up for our newsletter. We won't send you crap.
So that's all from us. A big hooroo. We hope to see you soon.
Shrek over and out.